The imperial gardens of Drakmora were silent. Not the peaceful silence of meditation, but the terrible quiet that comes when even nature holds its breath in fear. Empress Scarith the Eternal sat motionless on the obsidian bench, her massive form hunched beneath the twin moons. Her scales, usually gleaming crimson and gold, had dulled to ash gray. Smoke trickled from her nostrils with each shuddering breath. Around her, the garden itself seemed to wilt, flowers blackening, grass withering from the heat of her grief. It had been 3 days since the Emperor's assassination. 3 days since her mate of 4 centuries had fallen to a traitor's poison. 3 days since Scarith had last spoken a word. The Draconic Council stood at a safe distance, their fear palpable. A grieving dragon was a natural disaster waiting to happen. One wrong word, one unwelcome touch, and the Empress might incinerate the entire palace complex. Already the temperature within 50 meters of her had risen to dangerous levels. Someone must approach her. High Counselor Vexthor rumbled nervously, his bronze scales rattling. She hasn't eaten, hasn't moved. If this continues, you approach her then, snapped General Cormac. I value my scales. What about the human? Someone suggested. Every dragon head turned toward the palace entrance, where Marcus Webb stood with his maintenance cart, frozen mid-step. The night shift janitor had just arrived for his usual rounds, completely unaware of the crisis. A human. Vexthor scoffed. That fragile thing? She'll vaporize him accidentally. Exactly, Cormag said grimly. Better him than us. Marcus was 52, balding, with kind eyes and perpetually coffee-stained coveralls. He'd been cleaning the Imperial Palace for 6 years, ever since retiring from his freighter maintenance job. The dragons barely noticed him. Just another piece of the infrastructure like the lights or the air recyclers. Hey, Mr. Webb. An aide approached nervously. The Empress. She's in the garden. Could you maybe skip that section tonight? Marcus looked toward the garden, saw the shimmer of heat distortion, the Council of Dragons maintaining their fearful distance. He heard about the Emperor's death. Everyone had. She's alone out there? He asked quietly. Well, yes, but... Marcus picked up his thermos and walked toward the garden. Wait. Stop. You'll be. The aide's protests faded as Marcus kept walking. The heat hit him like a wall. By the time he reached the bench, sweat poured down his face. The Empress was massive this close. Even seated, her horned head rose 3 stories high. Her claws had dug furrows in the stone. Every exhale sent sparks into the night air. The smart thing would be to run. Instead, Marcus sat down on the opposite end of the bench. It was comically large for him, built for beings who could swallow starships. His feet barely touched the ground. He unscrewed his thermos and poured himself coffee. The Empress didn't move, didn't acknowledge him, just stared at the dead flowers with eyes like dying suns. Marcus sipped his coffee, waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. The watching council grew increasingly agitated. What is he doing? Vexthor hissed. Sitting, Cormag observed, sounding almost impressed. Just sitting. Finally, Marcus spoke. His voice was quiet, meant only for the Empress. My wife died 4 years ago. Cancer. We had 42 years together. He took another sip. Everyone kept telling me to stay strong and move on, and she'd want you to be happy. Like grief has a schedule, like there's a right way to fall apart. The Empress's breathing hitched, almost imperceptibly. You know what helped? Marcus continued, staring at his coffee. Well, my friend Joe came over. Didn't say a word. Just sat on my porch for 3 hours while I stared at nothing. When he left, he said, same time tomorrow. And he came back. Every day for 2 weeks. Never tried to fix me. Just Saturday. Silence. Then a voice like grinding mountains, raw with pain. They fear me. Yeah, Marcus agreed. You could probably level the city right now if you wanted. I could. But you won't. How do you know? Marcus finally looked up at her, craning his neck to meet those enormous, devastated eyes. Because 400 years of love doesn't turn into destruction. It turns into this, sitting in a garden at midnight, wishing things were different. Grief isn't rage. It's just love with nowhere to go. A sound escaped the Empress, something between a sob and a growl. The temperature spiked dangerously. Marcus felt his skin prickling, but he didn't move. "I don't know how to do this without him," Scareth whispered. The mighty Empress, conqueror of systems, sounded utterly lost. "You don't have to know," Marcus said gently. "Not tonight. Tonight you just have to sit here. Tomorrow you can sit here again. And the day after, however long it takes. The Empire will wait. It's managed this long. It can manage a while longer while you figure out how to breathe again." Scareth's massive head lowered slowly, coming to rest on the bench between them. This close, Marcus could see the tracks where tears had evaporated against her burning scales. "Will you?" Her voice cracked. "Would you sit with me? Like your friend did?" Marcus poured another cup of coffee. "I'm on shift until dawn anyway. Might as well take my break here." The faintest rumble, almost like a laugh, or maybe just relief. "You realize I could still incinerate you accidentally?" "Yeah, well." Marcus shrugged. "We all go somehow. At least this would be warm." This time was definitely a laugh. Small, broken, but real. They sat in silence as the moons crossed the sky. Occasionally Marcus refilled his coffee. Once, Scareth shifted her wings slightly to shield him from the cold night air, careful not to burn him. The council watched in amazement as the temperature around the garden gradually normalized. The Empress's scales began to regain their luster, just a hint of crimson returning to the ash gray. As dawn approached, Scareth finally lifted her head. "Marcus Webb, night shift janitor." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Tomorrow night. Same time." Marcus stood, his joints creaking. "I'll bring better coffee. The good stuff from Earth." "I would like that." As Marcus walked back toward the palace, thermos in hand, the council parted before him in stunned silence. General Cormag watched him go, then turned to Vex Thor. "I believe," the general said slowly, "we've been underestimating humans." High in her chambers, the Empress stood at her window, watching the human janitor disappear into the palace. For the first time in 3 days, she felt something other than crushing despair. She felt less alone, and sometimes that's enough to survive another night. The next evening, Marcus returned to the bench. So did Scareth. Neither spoke much, just two beings who understood that some losses don't need words, just presence. The Empire could wait. Tonight, there was only grief, coffee, and the quiet company of someone who knew that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply sit beside someone who's breaking and stay.